I am Paul Stengel, the CEO of the ARC Alliance, an organization run by families and supported by families. I'd like to express my gratitude to the Office of Developmental Programs for permitting me the opportunity to speak with you concerning the closure of Hamburg Center. The ARC has supported the closure of state-run institutions for over 30 years, and we commend Governor Wolf and his administration on the decision to close Hamburg Center. I'd like to speak to the crisis those families of persons residing at Hamburg are experiencing. There are no family that placed their child at Hamburg State Center frivolously or without great soul searching and without the recommendation of professionals at the time they placed their child. Many of these families had personal crises that gave them little to no option but to place their child. Many of these parents placed their children well before it became fashionable and community placements were available. The vast majority of those parents have seen their children, who are now adults, being well cared for, receiving 24 hours nursing care, and develop personal long-term relationships with other residents and staff. As a parent, I can assure you that changes in the services that your child receives is a stressful and terrifying experience. If your child appears to be well cared for and happy as a parent, there seems to be no reason to change the services that your family member is receiving. It is obvious that with community placement, there is a certain degree of risk to the child or sibling, and trying to understand why their child or sibling should be put at any risk is difficult at best. This concern is heightened by the occasional and anecdotal stories of what has happened in the community. Stories of abuse and neglect in the community are far too numerous to ignore, and to argue that individuals with disability face risk whatever they are is not reassuring. I would also suggest that an argument based upon cost is not an argument that families are particularly concerned about. The need for major and costly repairs and renovations is not a concern of the family. The neglect of the buildings and property at Hamburg State Center is failing of the state, and residents should not be punished because of the failing infrastructure of Hamburg Center. The cost for day-to-day operations falls squarely on the state's shoulders. The design of the system, the negotiation of contracts, and the regulation of the institution which has created the high cost of care. It is also difficult for many families to accept that because of their child's medical needs and of the severity of the disability, they can be served in a home-like situation. Although we know that the most medically fragile individuals are being served in the community, many by their families, this does not alleviate the family's concern. I say this in hopes that the state will be thoughtful and considerate of the families of the residents living at Hamburg State Center, that they will plan accordingly, ensure that the community programs that they select is safe and improves the quality of life of their family members. I urge the state to listen to family members' concerns and to reassure them that the move to the community will be a benefit to their families. The good news is that research over 35 years experience with closing institutions in Pennsylvania and across the county has shown that when asked families before their family member is placed in the community, roughly 90% object to the placement. 2 years after placement, roughly 90% of the families will be thankful for their family members being placed in the community. I cannot overemphasize the trauma families are going through during this transition. The ARC will do whatever we can to help families and the Office of Developmental Programs get through this time of change. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present the ARC Alliance's position on closing Hamburg Center.